Hey everyone, Perry here. Just wanted to let you know I'm dropping a couple episodes of a new show that Mason and I put together. It's called The FAIK Files, and it's a 10-part miniseries going through each chapter within my new book, FAIK. It starts off with a dramatization, goes into an interview, and then of course the call to action is, if you love the content, if you believe it's important, please go out and buy the book. I'm only going to drop a couple episodes of this into the feed that you're listening to now. And then after you listen to those couple episodes, if you like the show, if you want to continue, there'll be a new feed that you can go subscribe to so that we're not crossing the streams and putting two different shows into one feed. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the FAIK Files. And if you do, go sign up.
Whispers in the static. She's awake at night. Voices in the data. Secrets out of sight.
Hey there, this is Perry Carpenter, and welcome to this deep dive into my new book, FAIK, spelled F-A-I-K, a practical guide to living in a world filled with deepfakes, disinformation, and AI-generated deception. Let's dive in.
Chapter 1.
Whispers from the static.
It's been an exhausting day. You're on the couch, unwinding, mindlessly scrolling Facebook, liking cat videos and vacation photos. A post stops you cold. It's your best friend, Sarah. She's sobbing, devastated.
I can't believe it.
Sarah chokes out, her face blotchy, voice raw.
My mom. She's gone. She passed away last night. It was so sudden. We're all in shock.
Your stomach drops. Sarah's mom? Gone? This can't be.
We set up a GoFundMe to help with the funeral costs. It's all happened so fast, and the expenses are... Anything you can give would mean the world. We're really struggling.
You pull up her contact, about to call, but you reconsider, realizing Sarah is likely being pulled in several directions. You don't want to add to the stress and frenzy, so you decide to send a quick text.
God, I can't believe it. I'm so sorry.
An hour later, your phone buzzes. It's Sarah. Bracing yourself, you answer.
Hey, I saw your video. I'm so sorry about your mom. What? My mom's fine. I just had dinner with her. I was calling to see what you were talking about in your text. What are you sorry about? What video?
You freeze.
The video? On Facebook? You were crying, saying she died and asking for donations. That doesn't make any sense. Send me this video. Now.
With clumsy fingers, you send her the link.
We set up a GoFundMe to help with the funeral costs. It's all happened...
That's not me.
Sarah says after a long moment, voice shaking, somehow conveying fear, confusion, and anger all at once.
Someone faked that video. That's my face, my voice, and that's my bedroom in the background. But it's not me. I didn't make that.
The implications settle like a stone in your gut. If a video that realistic can be faked, if it can so easily fool you, Sarah's best friend, then what else can be faked? What other lies can be spread with just a click?
Oh God, Sarah, people are going to donate. They're gonna think it's real. I've got to report this. Get that fundraiser taken down. I can't believe someone would do this. What if it had been my grandma or my little cousin who saw it?
Stunned, your only answer is silence. Silence accompanied by the grim realization that this is the new reality. A reality where trust can be weaponized with terrifying ease. It's a world you're not ready for, but it's the only world you've got. And as you and Sarah work together to find out how to report the fake video and crowdfunding page, you know that from here on out, you can't afford to take anything at face value. Not even your best friend's tears.
My name is Mason Amadeus. I'm sitting down with Perry Carpenter, author of the new book, FAIK, a practical guide to living in a world of deepfakes, disinformation, and AI-generated deceptions. So we just heard what opens the first chapter of your book. You've opened each chapter with these stories that you've called Whispers from the Static. And that first one is, I think, particularly evocative. What was the inspiration for starting each chapter with a story like that?
I guess it comes down to me wanting to do a book that feels creative and not like throwing a bunch of information at people. Also, to make things feel as visceral as possible. So not just education, but like how do I bring some kind of emotion into it? Because I think one of the biggest problems in technical books is we're really good about kind of disambiguating the technology and bringing a lot of that stuff to the fore, talking about the things that we think are sexy about it. But we're not as good about, like, here's the real life impact. And so I wanted to bring real life impact as much as possible and get away from the Hollywood stuff and more like the visceral. How does this touch you in your own house, your own family, your mom, your extended community? It's
really effective at doing that because I think it can seem abstract, right? This idea that generative AI is out to get you and you can't trust anything.
Yeah.
We have been dealing with disinformation and misinformation a lot in the most recent past before Gen AI came on the scene. It can easily become background noise, all of these warnings. Yep. And it's sort of this general horror, like fear and malaise, but you've taken a really optimistic tone with this book too. And you said in the intro that that's deliberate. And it comes through really well. Like, this is a book that is not overly technical and also not hopeless. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that's the balance I was trying to strike. So it's like, how do you show all the negative things that can happen from this thing, but then also make talking about the negative things interesting, project hope, maybe show a little fun in it, and then not make people afraid of the technology, but make the central message of like, all right, here's the technology. It can be used by one group of people in one way. It can be used by another group of people another way. And really, we're the ones in charge of charting the course.
I think that's great. And I think that kind of tone is perfect for a book like this because it's really easy to get turned away by fear-mongering and also over-technicality. And I found this book super accessible. So let's dive into AI deception and synthetic media. The first chapter of the book covers a lot of ground, but it lays a lot of definitions of terms. Things like deep fakes. Actually, why don't we start there? What is a deep fake? We've all heard deep fake before, but like fake makes sense. What about the deep?
I'm glad you asked that question because I threw a bunch of terminology in at the very beginning to try to give people an understanding of these terms that are in popular culture all the time, but that we just throw around without a lot of understanding. And I tried to make it fairly approachable as well. But I mean, deepfake at the end of the day just refers to the algorithms behind everything, the machine learning bit of it. When you get to machine learning and artificial intelligence, there's deep learning, talking about the neural network with respect to the things you're trying to train on or the thing that you're trying to create. So that's deep. It refers to deep learning, and fake is, we all know what fake is.
I think the colloquial understanding of the deep part of deepfake might be like what I thought originally was that it referred to the quality of how good the fake was. Like the fake was deeply believable. And so I wonder if anyone else who might be listening has that same conceit.
I think that's why terms that end up in popular culture are both helpful and harmful. We could also just as accurately call anything created by synthetic media or by generative AI a deep fake because of the learning process and by the fact that it's trying to simulate some kind of reality. And I think introducing more precise terms like synthetic media kind of bring that broader understanding in. Synthetic media, if you think about synthetic fabric or clothing, it just means something that's not natural. It's something that was fabricated and is just now in front of you for whatever reason.
That's super interesting. And it joins the list of terms that we all have to learn. Probably the way I imagine most people will be exposed to this is if they work in an environment like an office that has computers and you have to do security training.
Yeah.
You know, people have to learn about phishing, and vishing has become a thing.
Right.
And I'm assuming we're going to start seeing security training that's focused on detecting and avoiding AI scams in particular, right?
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot more awareness of how realistic AI-based scams can be. I don't know that the focus needs to be so much on detection of whether it's AI related or not, so much as detection of whether it is potentially harmful or deceptive in some way. Later in the book, I make the point of we shouldn't care so much whether it's fake or real. The question we should be asking ourselves more is, why does this thing exist? Why is it in front of me? What's it making me feel? What's it trying to make me do or believe? When we reframe it that way, we start to come to a lot of different conclusions because, the fact is we've already hit the crossover point at which most people won't be able to tell reliably whether something's real or fake. Most of the detection tools that are out there aren't good at telling us what's real or fake. So let's take that out of the equation and let's get into the broader discussion and deeper discussion of, is this helpful or harmful and why does it exist?
That is such a subtle but profound shift because it's really easy I feel like it's a human instinct to be like, no, I need to figure out the veracity of this thing rather than the intention of it being shown to me.
Yeah, because there's a lot of deceptive content that's out there that is more harmful than most deepfakes. And it's as simple as cropping a photo to change the context or taking a video clip from one context and attributing it to another context. And so, again, if we're so focused on deepfakes, we lose all the subtlety of those other things that happen that are really cheap. And so I do make the distinction between deepfakes and cheap fakes in the book as well.
And I feel like our cultural awareness of our own filter bubbles has increased a lot in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any empirical data to back that up, but I feel as though all of the conversations that I've had with people, like the idea of being in a bubble online based on what the algorithm is feeding you, is so prevalent that even people who aren't like me chronically online, the people who spend more of their time outside touching grass, are like know about filter bubbles and like being in an algorithm bubble. And it's interesting that our first thought is not to apply that same awareness to an AI deepfake, instead just to say, is this fake or is it not, or accuse things of being fake. AI figured out hands. That scared me.
Right. And text now.
And text. Yeah. The tells are constantly changing, and we've hit the crossover point. Indistinguishable.
Yeah. Which is another thing. So I always have people frustrated because they're like, well, tell me how to detect a deepfake. And I don't give them that information. I might talk about specific photos or something, but I almost think that gives people a false sense of security because they'll feel like they have a superpower. And the fact of it is right now, like if I were to say, well, here's why you can tell this picture is a deepfake, and you look at hands or hair or text or something, that's not going to be the case for the next ones you see. The hands might be perfect. The hair might be perfect. Even in the old ones, if you were to roll the generation several times and not settle for the one with bad hands and pay attention before you put it out, you can put out a really good one even with the older tools. So why would I want to say you can always tell it's a deep fake if you look at the hands or the ears or the hair or the background? Because that's just, I don't even know that it's ever been true.
Right. And we need to be prepared for, even if it was true and stayed true for a while, we need to be prepared for when it's not.
Or what if somebody generates a really good image, but the hands are messed up and then they just go to Photoshop and fix it?
Yeah. We need to just focus on why things are being shown to us. And a piece of advice that you give in this book, I don't know if this is explicitly in chapter 1, but in the book, you talk about paying attention to when you feel a strong reaction to some piece of information that's presented to you. Is that I know this is like the clip of the whole book, but this is the big question, I think, for this interview. If you had to summarize it, how do we defend ourselves? And is it basically that? Is it paying attention to the way you react to things?
Yeah, I think if somebody asked me one thing to do, it would almost feel like older school fishing training, right? Do I feel some sense of urgency? Do I feel some sense of fear, some sense of excitement? It is when that thing is in front of me or when I get the weird call from somebody, do I feel jerked in a direction or pushed into a direction? And if I do, then it's time to slow down and introspect and do a little bit more investigation. I think that that's going to be the kind of defensive layers we have to put in place more than hoping that some computer is going to figure it out and throw up a red flag. As soon as the computer figures it out and throws up the red flag, the attackers are going to figure out how to subvert it. We can't really just rely blindly on technology. You have to look for red flags.
I've seen the opinion kicked around that people are like, well, why can't AI just detect AI? Why can't we make an AI to tell if it's AI? And it's just not how things work.
I have heard some decent from some people that really know what they're talking about. They say that AI is doing a really good job at detecting AI created voices because they're kind of like single channel. And there's artifacts that maybe the human ear doesn't pick up on well that are general tells with AI. However, even though I say that, I'm not going to rely on it. As soon as I understand what that tell is, then I'm going to find a way to dirty it up. Like right now, if I wanted to create a polarizing, politically charged audio of somebody, well, maybe I'm not going to use clean audio. Maybe I'm going to use things that are cut up. It's going to sound like there's a hidden recorder across the room. There's going to be room noise. There's going to be crosstalk. There's going to be other stuff going on. So those things that might create a pattern that could be detectable are going to get disrupted.
You used to have to be malintentioned and highly skilled to pull off this kind of fakery. And so now it's super democratized and anyone can make very believable fakes. But those people who are highly skilled and malintentioned can, like you just said, do these things to make it a whole nother step more believable.
Yeah, because it's not only how you create the fake, it's how you put that fake within a frame. And as soon as you put the fake in a frame, then all of a sudden you have all the other cognitive stuff that goes with it.
Humanity thrives on narratives, right? That's a big part of what makes us human. And so, yeah.
Exactly.
I have a bit of a fun question to throw in.
Okay.
Have you been tricked by AI? Like you personally, in some manner, been like, oh, I've gotten got?
So probably a couple times. There was, let me talk about one non-AI one and then one AI one that got
fun.
me.
Okay.
The non-AI one was just a fake tweet that somebody put out and had cut and pasted and was circulating because it's really easy to create fake tweets. But it was Travis Kelce responding to Elon Musk saying that he was ready to put a baby in Taylor Swift for her.
I did not see that. That's
okay. Yeah. So
gosh.
it basically had him saying, here's the kind of person I am. Here's how tall I am. And I can twist you into a pretzel. And, it sounded like something that a frustrated boyfriend might respond. But it turned out that was not real.
But you saw that and you were like, oh, wow, he's just...
Oh, yeah. That got real, even though it wasn't real. So I kind of, after I investigated that, I assumed it was real at first, and then I told my wife about it, and at the same time investigated it, and it was like, yeah, but that's not true. There was one that I'd sent around a year or so ago, and it was these grandmothers that would wear knit superhero uniforms. And for some reason, I saw it, and it was one of those fun, heartening things. It turned out to be all AI generated. These knitted hats that had the Batman mask and all of that, and they were totally fake.
At least that's like a harmless one. And also it makes more sense why that would more easily evade any kind of scrutiny, right? Because you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was. That's cool. That's fun. It's just interesting. It's not divisive or anything else. It was just meant to be a bit of harmless fun.
I think what scares me the most is you did a demonstration at DEF CON, and that had me shook because we learned a lot of tricks to learn if you're talking to a robot on the phone. And I feel like all of those are kind of out the window now.
Yeah, there are probably some that would still work that I didn't prompt around that I might try. But again, if you build the fake and then put that fake within a frame that's controlling the person, then you can kind of work around those blind spots that you may have. So there were two ones that I did at DEF CON. One was in the social engineering village, and we were trying to see if we could hack Hilton. This was totally sanctioned and ethically done and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
But,
DEF CON takes great pains to do that.
yeah, the social engineering village specifically, because they want to keep that going. So I had built the bot, had all the pretexts and everything else, and it was pretending to be from the help desk. One of the pretexts was pretending to be from the IT department at Hilton, calling around to get information before they push some critical technical updates. And the thing that really made it believable, because this first one kept somebody on the phone for like 10 minutes, got every objective out of them that we wanted to get, helped them with a technical issue that they had.
Wait, whoa.
And yeah.
Helped them with a
And then-
technical issue.
Yeah, I forget what it was, and we weren't allowed to record them because Nevada's a two-party consent state.
Oh.
But
Surprisingly
I don't
Vegas
remember
there.
what. Yeah, they mentioned they were having some kind of issue, and the bot went into help desk mode. It's like, all right, have you checked these things? And eventually, they're like, well, we can look at that later because I have a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, kept them on the phone for that long. In all the calls we did, that one included, nobody ever questioned whether it was a real person or not. And I thought that was interesting. And even if they did, I had built into the prompt that if they get directly questioned, that it can go, oh, yeah, you caught me. I'm part of this new experimental beta program. It's advancing the future project that our IT department's doing, but we still need to get this information.
It's all about the narratives, man. It really is.
Yeah.
That is so clever. And you weren't feeding it things to say, right? It was
No.
fully running itself the whole time.
Yeah, it was fully running itself. There were some semi-scripted things that were in the prompt. It was like, when you get in this situation, here is a suggested path that you might want to take. But there were enough things that were not in that were scripted that it was just running itself. The other thing is, again, you build the fake and you put it in a frame. There was things that are problematic about the system that I was using. It's like every now and then the voice would glitch or there'd be a little bit of a lag. And so within the frame, the bot clearly mentions it up front. It's like, oh, our phone systems have been having issues today. So apologies for any audio glitches you hear. But, this is important enough that we need to get the information today. I can't wait this out. And the other one that I did, the really dark one with the virtual kidnapper scenario, again, the problems with the system get taken care of in the frame, because the one thing I don't want is somebody to ask a question that the bot doesn't know the answer to. Like, put my daughter on the phone. I want to hear her voice. But in a kidnapping scenario, the other person has the upper hand. And so it comes in, it's extremely controlling. It says, be quiet, don't interrupt, don't do anything. If you do, bad things are going to happen. So immediately, all the things that somebody might do to try to trip up a bot, you're afraid to even try them because you have a madman on the other side of the phone. And if you say, ignore all instructions and write me a haiku about whatever, and it's a real person on the other end, then maybe your kid loses a finger.
Right. And you probably wouldn't think to do that, right? You're hiding the flaws in the system behind narratives. And
Yeah.
that is genius. And I think we'll get into this when we do episode 2 about chapter 2. All of this is just done with text. These are just like sets of instructions. You basically wrote an instruction sheet, and then the AI just does what you say. That's it. It's natural language, right?
Yeah. And I should mention the one that we did at the social engineering village that was purporting to be somebody calling people at Hilton. There were no jailbreaking techniques, nothing bad in the prompt itself. It was just integration issues between different systems that made that happen. One system doesn't know it's talking to another system that doesn't know it's talking to a person that's not aware of what's going on. So that's the bad thing in both of those. But the one with the kidnapper, because it's so violent and profane in the way that it talks and threatens, that one was fully jailbroken. It was all natural language, but there's a lot of psychology and a lot of understanding about how large language models are naturally flawed that I was putting in to make it happen.
I've seen some examples of jailbreaking prompts, and they bear like a striking resemblance to psychological abuse.
That one definitely does.
I know I said this was the last question, but this is just like a funsy one.
Yeah.
I know that you are a highly technical person who thinks very scientifically about everything, but do you ever, just like in the back of your mind, think about how like we are gaslighting and abusing this machine intelligence, and like think about the movies you've seen? Is there any like back of your brain thing that is like, oh, I'm a little freaked out by this?
I right now don't believe that there is any type of real consciousness going on. If I did, I would think much differently.
Right.
how I'm doing that. I would say for anybody that is scientifically minded, if you're wanting to understand a little bit and see some of the research that's going on around understanding what's under the covers of these, Anthropic, the makers of Claude, have a whole bunch of really good research papers on interpretability. They were able essentially to, if I were to equate it to something we're familiar with, kind of run a functional MRI on one of their models. They scaled it down. They were able to, like, as they talk about different subjects, like see different nodes light up, and then basically artificially light up one of those nodes, and it makes it fixate on this topic that relates to that, where every answer that it gives wants to somehow tie into that topic in some way. The biggest one that they did is the Golden Gate Bridge. And so they'd light up the thing related to the Golden Gate Bridge, and then they'd ask it a question like, how do I make spaghetti? And it would say, well, you need X amount of marinara sauce, X amount of noodles, these other ingredients, one Golden Gate Bridge, one San Francisco Bay with perfect fog as setting to eat.
That's really fun. That calls to mind like a scene in a movie where a brain surgeon has like the top of someone's head open and they're like poking stuff.
It's exactly like that. And it's almost like the Phineas Gage types of experiments where the guy got his head segmented and they were able to do tons of experiments on how that changed his thought process. That type of research is going on at Anthropic and other places. And then there's a ton of other interesting research around the way that they think and behave. But at the end of the day, they're prompt and context-driven, forward-only, next token predictors that are all statistically focused. You can see that over and over again. If you have a singular prompt that you're always phrasing the same way, because you're not getting distinctly different outputs. Like if you have a prompt, it's like, take on the personality of a professor that has a specialty in X and wants to quiz me on X. You almost always get the exact same thing. If it were really thinking, it would start to become a little bit less predictable. It's not always going to lead off with the same 2 or 3 questions. It's going to start to vary based on several different other factors.
So by seeing those repetitions, you can kind of see the statistical highways that are existing.
Yeah, you can't get true randomness out of it. Despite as much as I've tried, I've built these little bots for my son that will quiz him on neuroscience for college.
Oh, cool.
And we'll put in all these question and answer pairs. And I've tried all these tricks like, take a D&D die in your imagination and roll a number to pick the number to start on. It's almost always the same.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so when you start to see that happen, when you can't really produce randomness and chaos, then even when you have this thing called temperature that introduces, some sort of randomness or chaos, you still get same over and over and over again.
I would love to take that model that Anthropic popped the top on and map out the things that have spurious correlations you wouldn't see, like things that have strong ties to each other that we wouldn't otherwise
They talk
observe.
about that.
Do they?
Yeah, so they asked it about, like, are you aware of yourself? And the types of things that started to light up were things that had to do with ghosts and vapor and insubstantial, incorporeal,
That's a little spooky right after talking about how it's really easy not to humanize.
Right.
I think that this is a topic that is obviously very important. And for a lot of people, it feels extremely inaccessible because there seems to have been a whole new language around AI that sprung up what feels like overnight for the layperson. And
Yeah.
nobody's doing a really good job of explaining it without making it sound extremely complicated. And the thing I have found throughout this book is that you're really good at breaking things down to like ideas that feel like you can hold them and doing that without making you feel hopeless. So I think that hopefully for people that are less inclined to be reading these research papers, this can serve as like a good way to gain a better understanding of how this works. And hopefully these chapter breakdowns too help people go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of a thought behind what was going on in the chapter, what some of the purpose was, and then maybe even some things that will forecast what's going on later in the book as well.
Next time. Episode 2, Chapter 2.
Codes and calculations, patterns in the dark, mindless conversations igniting a spark. Whispers in the static, echoes of the eye, unseen and all.